It is 1948. Tokyo, Japan. Two police officers are doing their routine patrol when they stumble upon something that stops them completely cold. 5 tiny bodies. 5 infants. Dead. They were not killed by a stranger on the street. They were not abandoned in an alley. They were found inside a registered, licensed, government-approved maternity home. A place where desperate mothers brought their most helpless newborns, believing with their whole heart that they would be safe. The woman running that home was not a criminal on paper. She was educated. She was respected. She had spent decades delivering babies and saving lives. Entire families trusted her completely. But behind those walls, something deeply disturbing had been happening, silently. Systematically, for 2 full years straight, and nobody had noticed. Not the government, not the authorities, not a single person outside those walls. When investigators started digging, the numbers did not stop at 5. Ashes of infants started appearing at a mortician's house, then at a nearby temple. The count kept rising. By the end of the investigation, the total death toll had reached 84 infants, all inside one maternity home, in the heart of Tokyo. And here is the part that will truly disturb you. This woman walked into that courtroom, looked the judge in the eye, and served just 4 years. 4 years for 84 dead babies. Then she walked free, built a wealthy, comfortable life, and died peacefully at 90 years old. So how did this go on for 2 full years without a single person catching on? Who helped her cover it up? And how did a woman responsible for 84 deaths walk out of prison and die one of the wealthiest women in her neighborhood? If this story shocked you even a little, hit that like button right now and share this video, because this is only the beginning. It gets so much darker from here. So let me take you back to 1946. Tokyo, Japan. The war has just ended. Japan is completely shattered. Families are starving. People have lost everything. And in the middle of all this chaos, thousands of babies are being born every single day. Most of them are born to mothers who are so desperate and so broken that they cannot feed themselves, let alone a newborn child. Foster parents are becoming impossible to find. The government has no system in place to handle this. There is no support, no safety net, nothing. So where do these mothers go? They go to Miyuki, Ishikawa. Miyuki Ishikawa was born on February 5, 1897, in Miyazaki Prefecture, Japan. She was educated. She was respected. She graduated from Tokyo Imperial University as a certified midwife in 1919. She held important positions in multiple midwife associations across Tokyo. She was the kind of woman that entire families trusted without a second thought. She ran a government-approved licensed maternity home in the heart of Tokyo called Kotobuki Sanin. Desperate mothers from across the city brought their newborns there when they had absolutely nowhere else to turn. They handed over their babies, believing completely that they were leaving them in the safest possible hands. And that trust, that complete and total trust, is exactly what Miyuki Ishikawa was about to weaponize. So now the maternity home is filling up fast. More abandoned babies arrive every single day. Mothers too poor, too broken, too desperate to raise them. Foster parents are nowhere to be found. And this is where Miyuki Ishikawa makes a decision that will define everything. Instead of feeding these infants, she simply stops. No food, no care, nothing. She lets them starve one by one, silently, in the dark. Her own staff was so horrified they quit on the spot. But Ishikawa did not even flinch. Then she does something even more calculated. She starts charging the parents for it. She walks up to grieving families and tells them, "Pay us." It costs less than raising the child. And these broken, desperate parents pay her to kill their own babies without even knowing it. But she still needs to cover her tracks. So she brings in a local doctor named Shiro Nakayama. Every time an infant dies, he signs a death certificate. Cause of death, natural. No investigation. No questions. Bodies quietly cremated and gone forever. Between 1946 and 1948, burial permits issued to Kotobuki-sanin kept rising silently. 24 in 1946, 53 in 1947. The numbers were screaming, but nobody was listening. Because on paper, everything looked perfectly fine. For 2 full years, nobody knows. Until January 12, 1948. 2 police officers from Waseda Station are doing a routine patrol. Nothing special about that day. Nothing unusual about their route. But then they stumble upon something that stops them completely cold. 5 tiny bodies, all connected to Kotobuki-sain. Autopsies are performed immediately. The results are devastating. These infants did not die naturally. Not a single one of them. Investigators start digging. And what they find next, nobody was prepared for. Ashes of over 40 infants at a local mortician's house. 30 more sets of remains inside a nearby temple. The total death count eventually reaches 84. On January 15, 1948, Ishikawa and her husband are arrested. When investigators arrive at Kotobuki-sanin, 7 infants are still alive inside. 2 of them die shortly after being rescued. They were that close. And they still did not make it. So now she is arrested. The whole country is watching. 84 dead infants. A licensed maternity home. A doctor falsifying certificates. An entire criminal operation running in plain sight for 2 years. Everyone expects justice. What they get is something else entirely. On October 11, 1948, Miyuki Ishikawa stood in Tokyo District Court. Prosecutors push for at least 27 murder convictions. The evidence is overwhelming. The numbers are undeniable. The court convicts her of just 5 murders. 5 out of 84. And her sentence? 8 years in prison. Her husband, Takeshi, gets 4 years. The doctor Shiro Nakayama, who signed every single falsified death certificate, walks away with an even lighter sentence. But it gets worse. Both Ishikawa and her husband appeal the sentence. And on April 28, 1952, the Tokyo High Court actually reduced her sentence further, from 8 years down to just 4 years. 4 years for 84 dead babies. And during the entire trial, Ishikawa never once showed remorse. She sat in that courtroom and pointed her finger directly at the parents. She said they were responsible, not her. Because they abandoned their children in the first place. Some people in the public actually agreed with her. That is the part that is hardest to sit with. She walked out of prison in 1952. No remorse, no shame, no consequences worth speaking of. And what does she do next? She rebuilds. Completely. She starts selling soap, then cream, then fish. Small businesses, quiet moves. But Miyuki Ishikawa was never a small thinker. By the time a journalist from Shuken Shincho magazine tracks her down in 1969, she is running a full real estate office in Tokyo. Wealthy, comfortable, completely untouchable. The journalist sits across from her and asks about Kotobuki Sanin, about the infants, about everything. She looks back and says she is completely innocent, not a single word of regret. And then she says something that nobody expected. She tells the journalist that 2 years ago she had already built herself a large tomb, prepared, ready, on her own terms. Even her exit from this world was going to be comfortable. Her former lawyer estimated she had accumulated close to 100 million yen by that point. She lived the rest of her life quietly in Tokyo. Her name was listed in telephone directories from 1954 all the way until 1987. Her real estate business ran openly until the very end. On May 30th, 1987, Miyuki Ishikawa died peacefully. She was 90 years old. The 84 infants she left to die in the dark never saw their second day. Now here is what I want you to think about. This was not a hidden operation running in some dark basement. This was a government-approved licensed maternity home in the heart of Tokyo, with registered staff, official documents, death certificates signed by a qualified doctor. Everything was out in the open. And yet 84 infants died before anyone noticed. That is not just the story of one woman. That is the story of an entire system that looked the other way. A government too overwhelmed by post-war chaos to check its own registered institutions. A medical system where one doctor's signature was enough to make 84 deaths disappear. A society so broken by poverty and war that parents were paying strangers to take their children with no way to follow up. Miyuki Ishikawa did not create the conditions that allowed this to happen. The system did. And here is the most disturbing part of all. After this case was exposed, investigators discovered that 11 other maternity homes across Tokyo had been doing the exact same thing. 11. Kotobuki Sanin was not an exception. It was just the one that got caught. This case eventually forced the Japanese government to act. On July 13, 1948, the Eugenic Protection Law was established. And on June 24, 1949, abortion for economic reasons was finally legalized in Japan. A law born directly from the deaths of children that nobody was willing to save. But Miyuki Ishikawa never faced that reckoning personally. She built her tomb. She lived her comfortable life. And she died on her own terms. The system that created her never truly answered for what it allowed to happen. And that is the part that should stay with you long after this video ends.